This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome aboard for another Edmonton Oilers discussion here today as we get set up to just kind of take that overarching look that I was alluding to in the previous video earlier today, kind of look into the future a little bit and see what's happening next for the Edmonton Oilers in terms of the 2023 NHL offseason. Obviously, as we know right now, the Oilers are still waiting to sign Evan Bouchard, still waiting to sign Ryan McLeod. Heck, for some of you, by the time you're watching this video, it no longer applies and plans have changed. So that's kind of where we're sitting. It's day 3 of free agency right now in the NHL, and we're going to get things going in a matter of moments. But before we get there, if you're new to the channel, I'm going to look down at my screen, hit the button, and ask you to consider hitting that subscribe button here on Dolynny TV. Stick around and stay tuned for more Edmonton Oilers news, notes, updates, trades, rumors, free agent signings, whatever that case might be. I want you aboard for it, all right? I think that's a fair ask. I think you've been here probably before, and now considering hitting that subscribe button, I think, okay, good to go. That aside, we got one big thing we haven't really talked about all free agency long here so far. In the last 3 days, the trade rumors for the Edmonton Oilers have gone almost dead silent, right? We had word the other day about Brett Pesce going to San Jose and an Erik Karlsson deal, but that might not be Pesce's final landing spot, so there might be something more going on, and that's where your brain as an Oilers fan goes, oh, the Oilers might be involved. So when I'm looking at stuff like that and you're kind of mapping out how things are going to transpire across the NHL this offseason and kind of how they're going to transpire for us Oilers fans over the course of the offseason, that's where I ask the question, how likely will be a big trade for the Edmonton Oilers this offseason going into training camp, right? Right now, we're about to, once we're out of this first week of free agency, really go into hibernation, right? This is where the NHL goes quiet. This is where we really don't have much to talk about and things kind of start falling by the wayside. We start really enjoying the dog days of summer, right? Most of us are actually watching a lot more Blue Jays than we're even reading Edmonton Oilers. And then all of a sudden we pick things back up about mid-August and get ready to go, right? July 10th to August 17th, 18th, we kind of go into hibernation. Well, what we're going to be tracking all summer long is, of course, until the Erik Karlsson situation is kind of raveled up, until the Brett Pesce situation is wrapped up, and of course the Alex Debrincat situation is wrapped up. Those are 3 big names that are going to be floating around the NHL left, right, and center all off season long. And us as Oilers fans, fair enough, we've talked about all 3 and we should have interest in all 3, but that's not necessarily the end-all be-all of a big trade happening for the Edmonton Oilers this off season. But again, when you look at it, right, we know we have to sign Evan Bouchard, we know we have to sign Ryan McLeod, we know we have to sign Raphael Lavoie. Other than that, we need a 4th-line centerman, maybe a depth defenseman, and that's really all that's on our shopping list this summer. But when it comes to upgrades, when it comes to making that defense better that so many people cry is too porous to win a Stanley Cup, right? Everybody's always saying this or that. You want to upgrade on goaltending. John Gibson's now available. He has played his last game for the Anaheim Ducks is what I read this morning. So you look at it from all angles. Okay, there's a defenseman, there's a goalie, there's a forward. There's all kinds of potential upgrades on the market for the Edmonton Oilers. But when you go break it down, the real question is, from Erik Karlsson to John Gibson, how likely is any of this to happen? And that's a good question, right? I think you look at it, go back to my reporting on the Milan Lucic for James Neal deal way back when. I said, is it possible? And I mean, I was the first one on that right away, and everybody said, no, stupid idea. Why would the Flames ever do that? Why would the Oilers ever do that? That's not going to work, blah, 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 blah. And then a few weeks later, we found ourselves trading for James Neal and sending Milan Lucic and keeping $750 off to the Calgary Flames. So again, right, nothing is actually likely to happen until it happens. Just because it's talked about, just because it seems to be tracking that way, until it's official, it's not official, right? Same thing we figured out with Connor Brown here the past few days is at the time when Connor Brown was leading into the Edmonton Oilers organization, 100% slam dunk. I guaranteed he'd be an Oiler by July 1st, all that. And then up until about an hour past the free agent frenzy opening up, we had Frank Saravelli saying, oh, pump the brakes, possibly not, slow down, might not happen. And then all of a sudden, yes, Connor Brown became an Edmonton Oiler. But I think, too, what you have is you have so many reporters, so many angles on everything that all summer long we could track an Erik Karlsson trade. We could track a Brett Pesce trade. We could track a John Gibson trade. We could track an Alex Debrincat trade. We could track any superstar across the NHL, any star across the NHL, any top 6 player across the NHL, any middle 6 player across the NHL that could potentially change the course of our season, any second pairing defenseman, any upgrade on Cody Ceci. But until it's officially done, it happening is not guaranteed. So when you're talking about how likely something is to happen, you're going to need to see weeks worth of rumors, right? As we saw with Connor Brown, you're going to need to see lots of angles hitting the same story. You're going to need to see a lot of stuff building up. And right now, we don't see that with Erik Karlsson. We don't see that with Alex Debrincat. We don't see that so much anymore with Brett Pesce. And of course, right, John Gibson is just getting started. But what I will tell you right now, we will discuss John Gibson tomorrow. I think that's kind of what I've got scheduled for a video tomorrow. But at current, no big trade seems likely for the Oilers. But again, that's because this, and this has to happen before we can start talking about that, right? Right now, our primary focus is on 2 players, Bouchard and McLeod, getting them signed to bridge deals, and then, of course, getting on with the offseason. So right now, not to say we're on pause, but until something breaks with Bouchard and McLeod, likely the Oilers aren't going to shake anything up and go make a big move that involves multiple pieces until they know they've got their 2 pieces they covet from the RFA market very highly solved beforehand. So that's where we're currently at, right? That's where we're at currently. But you go 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, a month from now, well, things can change, right? And I think to say long picture before the off season is done, right? Targeted about September 10th. Before September 10th, I do think at bare minimum, the Oilers make a sizable trade. Huge trade, big trade you want to use? Probably not, in my opinion. But a sizable trade, right? Whether you somehow wheel and deal a 3-team trade for Brett Pesce, that's a big trade, sure. But again, it takes a little bit more involved to get it going for the Oilers. So it's not just bing, bang, boom trade. It's a big one that, whoop, bang, right? I mean, a 3-way trade's always big, but the Oilers would be probably getting the smallest part of that trade, right? They'd be giving up more than likely the smallest part, but again, they'd be getting the smallest piece, if you get where I'm going, right? Erik Karlsson, if he's involved, likely to be that one. If that's the rumored trade, Alex Debrincat, right? Any 3-team trade, the Oilers are likely to maybe be involved to upgrade the team, but also get, when you look at the 3 pieces involved, picks, prospects, second-tier player, star player, the Oilers are likely to be right there in the middle getting that second-tier player that just upgrades the team a little bit. So, sizable trade, yes. Big, huge, massive. Those big words I use all the time. Probably not likely at all before September 10th. But that's the fun of it all, my friends. We will stay tuned. We will find out when it comes to these Edmonton Oilers and Ken Holland's master plan in the 2023 NHL offseason for the Edmonton Oilers. I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. I'm going to leave you on that. We'll talk John Gibson tomorrow, and we will get going with some more Edmonton Oilers discussion coming soon after a big days of work tomorrow. I am up on out of here.